Earlier today, you posted an Instagram photo that you have now deleted where you were sort of imitating Malcolm X posted up by the window. He's got a gun in the photo. You had a knife. I can imagine why you deleted it because two controversial things: white guy in hip hop media and white guy making a joke about about a famous black leader who's been dead for many decades, but then also making a little bit of a joke about British knife crime, which it's easy for us to joke around about that because it's not really hitting close to home. But for you, I would imagine this is a little bit more heated. What was the idea with that photo, and why did it get deleted?
Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? I had a stern talking to from Van Lathan after posting that photo.
That's kind of
And
his gig. Like he shows up when someone needs a stern talking to, or at least he thinks.
yeah, to be honest, man, it's a weird one because like I've been taking a lot of photos recently. I'm trying to get more active on Instagram.
Uh-huh.
And I'll keep it real with you. I didn't really think it was going to be that big of a deal. Like people saying it's like you were comparing yourself to Malcolm X. Now, I was kind of like trying to pay homage to Malcolm X. And I don't know if anyone's going to believe this, but like the reaction I was kind of expecting, aside from like the normal hate that I would get, I was kind of thinking people would be like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like he's kind of paying homage to Malcolm X, who's like more of a, black political activist as opposed to maybe, the hip hop stars that I usually kind of pay homage to and show my respect to. Like Malcolm X is somebody that I kind of have always looked up to and admired as far as like somebody who really achieved great things and really stood up for what he believed in. I thought it was a cool picture. I didn't really put too much thought into it, and I was kind of like I wasn't like trying to make light of anything really, but I thought it was kind of like my thing of I've got tons of people that have been threatening to kill me lately. I kind of be peeping through the curtains too. We don't have guns in the UK. I took a picture with a knife. I put it in black and white. I thought it kind of looked cool, and I was really trying to show love, but that shit went sideways. And you know what I'm saying? I switched up the caption. I was like, let me try and like just make it a bit more clear I'm trying to pay homage. Then Van Lathan hit me up and basically was like, bro, that ain't gonna run. And you know what I mean? I wasn't trying to annoy anyone with it. So I did cave in and take it down. Like that kind of did cut me a little deep because I was like, I was really wasn't trying to do anything bad with it. Like I was kind of showing love, but at the same time, man, I feel like sometimes when Van speaks, you got to listen. So you know what I'm saying? I took that one to heart, and I'm gonna do a like a sit down or a interview with him soon and
Right.
go into it.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
man, I got pressed on that one, and like I kind of see where people are coming from, but like that really wasn't my intention. And I kind of thought like, oh, I'm gonna kind of show people that I actually like kind of have an interest in maybe the deeper, more political side of black culture. But that was L in the end.
well, yeah, I mean, you want to show people that your reference base goes back more than, 5 or 10 years at times, and that can be important, kind of impress people like, oh, look, I know what the fuck is going on in the history of the culture, etc. But I mean, there's a thing that occurs where it's like, if you're a white guy, especially a white guy in hip hop, and you try to do almost anything that in any way compares yourself to or puts yourself in the same category as important black people, in particular, important black political leaders, it's just going to be perceived in the most negative possible light. And on one hand, I do think it's important as, a white person in the culture to kind of stand on business. And like when people get the wrong idea about something like that, there's a certain part of me that wants to say, actually, it wasn't a statement of racism. And actually, I think that you are psychotic because you chose to perceive it that way. But then on the other hand, it's like, do you really want the smoke? Do you really want to spend the next week talking about this? Do you want Charlemagne to make you the donkey of the day? Because these are all real possibilities at a certain point, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really trying to stand on business on this one. I kind of just thought, like, I really thought it was a cool picture, and I guess I thought wrong that like it was more like a style thing as far as like I had taken like a bunch of pictures. Let's be real, I'd taken quite a lot of pictures with the knife, and that was one that I just thought was interesting. I kind of took it on a bit of a whim. And you know what I'm saying, threw it in black and white, thought it was kind of cool, threw the Malcolm X one in there. I don't know. I guess I just had the wrong idea. I kind of thought people might think it was like interesting. I had this idea recently that I wanted to take like Instagram more seriously, and I was gonna do like a bunch of different pictures from like famous rap covers and like famous artworks and stuff, and put myself in it. Again, it's sort of a thing of like I don't think that. Let's say I took a funny picture with my shirt off with the bullet hole like 50 Cent. I don't think I'm 50 Cent, and I'm not trying to disrespect 50 Cent. I'm just trying to like just show that I'm a fan. Realistically, like in a way, it was really just me trying to be like, I'm a fan of Malcolm X as well
Right.
as all
And
these rappers. Like, what do you think? But that shit backfired heavily, man. And I'm a hold the L.
but that is weird though that like if you were to do something that made you look like 50 Cent, I don't think anybody would care at all because not a famous political leader. Like there's a certain level of sensitivity when it comes to religious leaders and people who are in charge of political movements and stuff like that. That yeah, that I could see how that would maybe be perceived the wrong way. But anyway, I mean, okay. So getting into this young boy thing, coming
But
off the
before we go on, I just want to say one thing, which is like I had always like I'm a big fan of obviously like the Malcolm X biography and the movie too,
right,
and like there'd always been a little part of me that had almost been like people always hit me with that thing of just like oh all you cover is negativity in the black community, even though I do actually cover a lot of white artists and even like white gangbangers if you want to go there. But like I had often thought to myself like maybe one day when I got time like maybe let me make a little Malcolm X documentary or MLK documentary or a documentary about like an aspect of black culture that I think actually not that it doesn't get enough shine, but as far as like people saying I only use my channel for negativity, like you know what I mean, there was a part of me that thought like oh maybe one day I'll do like a Malcolm X documentary and try and like really sort of trace the origins of his movement into like modern day culture. And sort of like since the reception on this one has been so bad, I feel like that's a no-go now. But like
that's interesting.
it's something that I'd thought of because I feel like I have this skill as far as like untangling history and helping people like understand the relevance of certain things. But yeah, probably not the one now.
Well, no, I wonder how that would do because I mean, you cultivated a certain audience, and I just wonder if you did a 2 hour Malcolm X documentary, which I'm sure you can make very interesting. And I, for some reason, when I was a kid, I read the book at least once and watched the movie at least once, which is kind of weird. Like looking back on it, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily expect me to have that reference base or whatever. But whenever I see people talking about straightening their hair, in my head, I refer to it as a conch, which is what it's called in the movie. And I don't know that anybody has actually like used that phrase in real conversation in the past couple decades. But yeah, that's always. I wonder how far your audience would be willing to go, and would it be the kind of thing where maybe they check it out, but they're exiting out within the first 10 minutes after they realize that it's more of a serious project and not going to have that much, bloodthirstiness.
I mean, you know, there's almost like some reverse bloodthirstiness in there as far as like
Yeah.
there's still a lot of excitement in the Malcolm X story, and even so, like even exploring like you know the theories on like who might have been responsible for his assassination. And again, people always hit me with that thing of like, why don't you do a video on the KKK since you like criminals so much? And there's a little part of me that's like, I'm not gonna front. Obviously, I do not fuck with the KKK, but like a video on the history of the KKK might be interesting. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
I would paint them in a
You're
negative
telling me
light.
that if Netflix had on Front Street next time you logged in, 3-part series, how the KKK did this like really powerful seeming documentary, you're telling me you wouldn't want to watch that? Sometimes I feel like I need to hide the fact that I've been interested in hate groups my entire life, and I've always found it within myself to do a little bit of research about what's going on with the skinheads, the Klan, the more modern like alt-right era of hate groups and stuff like that. Like why would I not be interested in that? And I kind of resent that about people when they're like, oh, you only are interested in this like in black violence, and it's like, well, I've also spent huge parts of my life watching documentaries about the Hells Angels or like any other like kind of dissident group, violent group, criminal organization. Same thing with Vlad. You've seen that he's gotten taken in that direction where he's interviewing hella people from prison gangs, the leaders of the Aryan Brotherhood. He's doing all kinds of Italian mafia stuff. In my case, I have been doing like rap content for like 8 years, and I've been listening to rap for like 30 years. So I do feel a little bit more specialized to be having conversations with rappers and whatnot. But I mean, I've always been drawn to crime. Like at least if we're talking in terms of content, not even bothering to speak on my actual life. But I'm interested in all that. And this is one thing I've noticed about myself. Maybe you can resonate with this. Is that I know so many people, especially women, who are really fascinated by true crime. They love learning about serial killers. And I've tried to watch some of that content. I even saw Drake when he was doing the Bobby Altoff interview. Drake says, yeah, I sit around and I watch murder documentaries on Netflix or whatever. And I've tried to watch some of that. One that I watched recently was like, the basic gist of it was just some crazy guy. He would ride on freight trains. He would get off on the freight trains. He would go into random women's houses and he would stab them to death. And I just didn't really find it that interesting because this is just a lone psychopath. Like that's the fact that one person has the urge to kill 8 women before he gets caught. I understand that this is like how some percentage of human beings are built, and it is interesting, but I don't find it that interesting. Whereas a bunch of guys who come together to rob banks or create a gang and murder their enemies or whatever, I mean, I find that a lot more interesting. Just the idea of people like uniting in order to commit crimes for the furtherance of the gang or their own. It's just like I've put together a lot of businesses over the years, and it takes like a certain degree of organization in order to create a business. And a gang is essentially just like a business that exists to commit criminal acts. I can't really justify it in my head because the odds of getting caught seem so unbelievably high. But I'm fascinated by people who come together in groups to do this sort of thing. It doesn't have anything to do with race. It's just the fact that I'm fascinated by people who choose to base their life around crime, I guess.
Yeah, there's something really fascinating about like criminal enterprise. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I find it less interesting to look at like a random slasher that just runs around slashing people up because they're just crazy.